Good morning, all of you. Welcome back to the channel. So here we are starting with the analysis video for 14th of August 2023. So firstly, we see that in Manipur, the officials, they've been told to quit the social media groups. So with the bureaucracy and the police split on ethnic lines, government says that members of groups that further the separatist, anti-national, communal, and divisive agendas, all of this will invite disciplinary action. So the officials which are active on social media who are sharing the post, and if that is somewhere leading to separatist, anti-national, communal elements in their spread, so it would invite the disciplinary action. So be it the officials or the civil servants or officials from the police. So even we are seeing a divide, a split between bureaucracy and the police on ethnic lines in the state. So amid the reports that the bureaucracy and the police, they are split on the ethnic lines in Manipur, the state government has asked the officials to quit the formal and the informal groups on social media platforms that further all these elements, which somewhere leads to disturbance at the local level, the security. Then government has sought a compliance report from all the departments on this. So herein we're just talking about the state of Manipur. So do you think that this should be the thing at pan-India level also? So of late we are seeing that, even officers, they are so active on social media platforms, and should that be basically allowed or not? So basically, social media is kind of used as a platform to push the agendas, indulge in spreading the false information, also hate speech and videos, as well as sharing that information. So it should not be available in the public domain. So all these official things, they shouldn't be available on social media. That is not, I would say, the apt medium to share information on social media platforms, because again, it could flare up things further. So this is one thing, and we see that 14 states, they're yet to join the education scheme. So the scheme is PM USHA. So the focus districts, they should be identified to improve overall quality of higher educational institutions. So you need to remember that PM USHA scheme focuses upon higher education and quality improvement. And the challenge method of selection of the districts, it involves 3 stages. मतलब जिस method के through आप district को select करते हो under the scheme, it is called the challenge method, and 3 stages है. First is that जो states and union territories हैं, आपको MOU sign करना पड़ेगा with the Union Education Ministry with commitments on implementation of the National Education Policy 2020 reforms. So NEP जो policy है, वो आपको उसके लिए MOU sign करना पड़ेगा, that you will be adhering to it and you will be ensuring its implementation. Stage 2 is that state governments जो हैं, they will shortlist कौन सी universities, college and districts basically scheme के अंडर आने चाहिए. Third stage is ministry will evaluate जो भी proposals दिए जाएंगे by the state government and then send them for approval by a project approval board. Finally, all these stages and this process will get completed. So it is basically Pradhan Mantri Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan. And the center says that it is holding discussions to iron out whatever differences are there with the dissenting states and communicate the importance of the national education policy and PM USHA kya hai. So apart from this, और क्या features of this scheme आप वो find out कर सकते हो. So we are seeing floods in Assam. So almost 75,000 people have been affected because of Assam floods. So the situation is further deteriorating. So again, specifically in the northeastern states, floods, we can say it's a common thing. So despite that, again, the role of the state disaster management authority, that becomes important. Your planning to deal with floods. That is important because that is a recurrent phenomenon in the northeastern states. And then again, what measures you can take basically to mitigate the situation or do something permanent that reduces the intensity of floods every single time. So since we see that there are four major rivers which are flowing above the danger level in the state, so that makes the area a little more vulnerable to floods. And we have the main river is Brahmaputra, and then there are tributaries of it. So you need to be again clear with the proper, the left bank and the right bank tributary of Brahmaputra, their names and flowing through which all states. So that needs to be clear. Their source needs to be clear. So it includes Dubari and Nimati Ghat, with while the sound they were flowing above the danger levels. So spreading the Bahujan culture, arts and literature throughout the country. So this is something which is lesser known. So you need to find about, like, there are poems titled as Bahujan Bhavuta, which is written by Vanpatla Subhaya, and then there is Ninu Savitri Phule Nu Matla Dutunna. This is written by Damera Rumullu. It is unveiled at 100 places across the country. So this is somewhat like a first of its kind initiative that has been taken up. So literature would be published, that has been published by the writers from the backward classes. It was launched simultaneously at 100 places. So even the contribution of the lesser known personalities from the backward classes, that also becomes important. And again, their important writings, books, and poems, they're also crucial. Coming to the editorial page, so let's see, we've been seeing that basically three new bills, they would be replacing the criminal laws in India. So step towards decolonization of the law. So criminal laws, they may need reforms, but not new and unfamiliar names. So few would disagree that the laws require an overhaul from time to time so that they could be abreast of the developments in technology and what the changes happening in society. So that is important. Whatever changes are happening, our law needs to be in sync with those changes, with those emergent challenges. However, it does not mean that whole new codes be introduced and given abstruse names when in substance the old laws, they are essentially retained. So this is something basically ये बोल रहे हैं कि completely new law introduce करना, and then जो भी names हैं like the भारतीय न्याय संहिता or the भारतीय नागरिक सुरक्षा संहिता, like these, मतलब ये names नहीं होने चाहिए. Third is the भारतीय साक्ष्य bill. So this is to replace Indian Evidence Act. One is to replace IPC. One is to replace CRPC. So it is being said that it is unnecessary to refer to them wholly in their Hindi names. मतलब ये कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लेक्स बना देता है चीजों को. And every law in India, it has an official translation in the respective official language of every state also. So the need for IPC, CRPC, and Evidence Act to be referred to in their Hindi names alone, that is questionable. And criminal procedure law, it was reenacted in 1973. It is known as CRPC. 1973 is distinct from जो 1898 का version है, जो ब्रिटिशर्स के टाइम पे बनाया गया था. सो मतलब obviously this is not something that we can do कि हर time हम new law introduce करें. जो भी changes required हैं या जो भी amendments required है given the changes happening in the society, how the technology is evolving at a faster pace, so वो amendments किए जाने चाहिए time to time, but introducing altogether a new law, that is something not desirable. And then यहाँ पे name से regarding बात की गई है, that is not so important for us. So in substance, जो deletion है of sedition, that is welcome. So this is also one of the proposed reforms, and its apparent equivalent, that is new section introduced किया जाएगा, section 150. It does not use over broad terms such as promoting disaffection against the government या बात करो bringing into hatred or contempt. तो ऐसे broad terms नहीं use किए गए हैं in this section 150. So it criminalizes promoting secessionism, separatism, armed rebellion, but it also targets subversive activities and endangering the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India. So these are the terms that should not be allowed to be misused. And then another potentially misusable provision in this new section of 195 is that it penalizes making or publishing the false or misleading information. मतलब the person that is involved in making and publishing the false and misleading information, jeopardizing the sovereignty, unity, and integrity and security of India. Then talking about mob lynching and the organized crimes. So these are also new sections and significant omission in the hate speech, even though defining it, punishing it, it has been under discussion for some years. मतलब hate speech को आप कैसे define करोगे? And then it's like punishing it, मतलब how you'll be deciding with the punishment if someone is found involved in hate speech. So the procedure code, it enables conduct of the trial of the proclaimed offenders in absentia also. This is also one of the new reforms proposed. So making a videography of the seizures mandatory, that is also a welcome step. So too, the provision of deemed sanction if the authorities they fail to grant it within 120 days. मतलब अगर 120 days हो गए है sanction नहीं दिया गया है तो it would be deemed कि after the collapse of 120 days the sanction would be deemed as given. So the remand provision, it seemed to permit the police custody beyond the current 15-day limit, attracting some criticism, and the new laws, they need critical scrutiny but not new names. मतलब इतना टाइम स्पेंड करना, रिसोर्सेज स्पेंड करना अबाउट थिंकिंग की नेम्स क्या होने चाहिए. सो वी नीड टू बी गोइंग इनटू लुकिंग कि क्या ऑब्जेक्टिवली रिफॉर्म्स रिक्वायर्ड है इन एसेंस. So bulldozing the law and the constitution. So this is in context of basically हरियाणा में after the communal violence in the Noor district we saw कि जो मतलब ऑफिशियली ये बोला गया था कि जो इलीगल स्ट्रक्चर्स कंस्ट्रक्ट किए गए हैं, लीगल बिल्डिंग्स हैं, वो सारी डिमोलिश की जाएगी. बट एट द सेम टाइम इट इज ऑल्सो बीइंग सेड कि even this exercise was targeting one particular community. So in this context, we'll try to understand this article objectively. So within the law of India or not, so ethnic cleansing, it is not defined by Indian Penal Code या फिर आप चाहे international law की बात करो, तो ethnic cleansing की proper definition नहीं है. So its first use that is attributed to a UN appointed commission of experts 1992 में ये ethnic cleansing term सबसे पहले use की गई थी. So according to this committee, basically it referred to ethnic cleansing as basically क्या वो समझते हैं by this term. They said that it is a purposeful policy designed by one ethnic or religious group to remove by violent and terror-inspiring means the civilian population of another ethnic or religious group from certain geographic areas. So इससे थोड़ा अगेन जो पिक्चर है अबाउट एथनिक वायलेंस होता क्या है वो क्लियर होती है. So commission it also enumerated कि state actions जैसे कि arbitrary arrest and detention, destruction of property, forcible removal, displacement, deportation of the civilian population, and extrajudicial executions in the list of coercive practices that constitute ethnic cleansing. मतलब कि जो state actions हैं जो ये सब चीजें comprise करती हैं, ये भी कहीं ना कहीं coercive practices हैं जो ethnic cleansing का ही part है. तो क्या हम बोल सकते हैं कि जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ हरियाणा ने एक्शन लिया ऑफ डिमोलिशिंग द सो कॉल्ड इलीगल स्ट्रक्चर्स, क्या वो भी कहीं ना कहीं पार्ट है एथनिक क्लिनजिंग का कि नहीं? तो डिस्पाइट द लैक ऑफ स्टैट्यूटरी रिकग्निशन any such subversive act, it is grossly inimical to the constitutional guarantees under Part 3 of India's Constitution, because there is no statutory recognition to this. So it is violation of the fundamental rights of the citizens. So the concern and judicial intervention under Article 226 of the Constitution of India. So law and procedure की अगर हम बात करें तो High Court it took cognizance of the fact कि जो demolition drive की गई it was carried out without demolition orders and the notices. कोई demolition order नहीं issue किया गया, कोई notice नहीं issue किए गए, and this was done. So it was a violative, it led to violation of procedure established by law. So कहीं ना कहीं state action is also at fault. So Article 21 of Indian Constitution commands कि no person shall be deprived of his life and personal liberty except according to the procedure established by law. So since it led to violation of law, क्योंकि कोई demolition legal orders या notices issue नहीं किए गए थे. And then there is one case, Menka Gandhi case of 1978, Supreme Court, it had expanded the scope of procedure established by law by ruling कि जो ऐसा procedure है, it has to be fair, just and reasonable. कोई fanciful या oppressive arbitrary nature नहीं होना चाहिए. So कहीं ना कहीं these are all the features of procedural due process. तो अगर हम बात करें कि Constitution में Article 21 क्या बोल रहा है कि it needs to be in accordance with the procedure established by law, but हम follow क्या कर रहे हैं? हम follow करते हैं due process of law. तो ये distinction या ये clarity पता होना बहुत ज़्यादा important है. So under this Menka Gandhi case of 1978, Supreme Court, it had introduced these elements of due process of law कि law fanciful, oppressive, arbitrary नहीं होना चाहिए. Law needs to be fair, just and reasonable. It needs to be rational. तभी हम उसको बोलेंगे कि it is due process of law. So Article 21, it is constitutional travesty that scant regard for such basic principles. It is demonstrated by elected governments. Now coming to rule of law, yeah, rule by law. So while the rule of law, it is declared as a basic feature of the Constitution, rule by law is the antithesis of all that is represented by the rule of law. The rule of law, it is like legal. Rule by law, it is antithesis of the rule of law. So the rule of law, it is government run by law and not men. मतलब जो जिस तरीके से गवर्नमेंट फंक्शन करेगी that would be as per the law. ये मतलब है rule of law का. अगर हम बात करें roots behind this idea, behind the rule of law, so it can be seen in even Article 39 of the Magna Carta that declares कि no freeman they shall be taken or imprisoned or diseased or exiled or in any way destroyed, nor will we go upon him nor send upon him except by the lawful judgment of his peers. So Article 21 of the Indian Constitution reflects on this and had its contours expanded by the Supreme Court as well. Now, ये जो भी हमने progressive journey देखी of rule of law, this has been reversed because of rule by law. When rule by law, it comes into the picture. So rule by law, it is when the law is used in an instrument of suppression, oppression, and social control in the course of implementation of a political agenda. तो कहीं ना कहीं जो coercive elements आ जाते हैं जो नहीं होना चाहिए, that is undesirable, that constitutes rule by law. तो एक सिंगल वर्ड को रिप्लेस करने के बाद कंप्लीटली मीनिंग ही उसका उसका इंटरप्रिटेशन ही चेंज हो जाता है. रूल ऑफ लॉ इज लीगल, दैट इज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल, रूल बाय लॉ इज नॉट डिजायरेबल. So administrative act of demolishing the dwellings and buildings without issuing notices and hearing the affected person, ये कहीं ना कहीं हमें बता रहा है कि this is rule by law. So elected chief ministers, other ministers in various states have already declared essay acts of bulldozing as the state policy, and the Haryana Home Minister chose to be no different when he stated that bulldozers, they are part of the ilaj, matlab they are part of the treatment. So this statement, it found its place in the judicial order जो pass किया गया by the Punjab and Haryana High Court, which offers solace to the affected. So it's high time कि जो courts record हैं, such as verbal and non-verbal threats which are issued by elected ministers who are bound by the oath of the office. So again, we cannot use law for pushing political agendas. So what is the path to justice now? So it is no one's case that the people who create unrest in the society, they should not be dealt with as per the law. So this is there, and what is derided is कि जो administrative animosity है, which turns into colorable exercise of power. So it is one thing to prosecute जो भी accused है, it is another to render his family or neighbor shelterless. And Haryana में taking a cue from the administrative excesses जो देखे गए, villagers, they are economically boycotting the communities who they perceive to be now the rivals. And such acts, it creates a situation जहाँ पे we see fraternity, which is the Christian constitutional ideal, it is deterred from remaining even a remote possibility. Because again, we are now seeing enmity between different religious communities. So justice, it must never take the form of revenge. So if the element of revenge exists, so you can't say कि it is justice. So when the state it tends to prosecute on the basis of religion, constitution, it suffers a breakdown. So constitutional courts, they are expected to prevent such things don't happen, and there rests the hope of the republic also. So is the US-Iran hostage swap finally materializing or not? So what has been said about the release of frozen funds of Iran? What role did Qatar play to secure this deal? And then how long have negotiations gone on between the two countries on this thing? So what has actually happened? So we see that move was acknowledged by the US Secretary of State in a press conference with the Mexican Foreign Secretary. And Mr. Blinken, he said that the development to move the detainees to house arrest, it was a positive step. So, but he said, but I don't want to get ahead of its conclusion because there is more work to be done to actually bring them home. So this is, he believed, is the beginning of the end of their nightmare and the nightmare that the families have experienced. So Mr. Blinken said that in their efforts to bring the Americans home, Iran's own funds, they would be used and transferred to restricted accounts, such as they can only be used for only humanitarian purposes, which is permitted under the sanctions. But साथ ही साथ it is also being said कि जो भी developments हो रही है, ये relief in sanctions ईरान को नहीं provide करने वाला है किसी भी तरीके से. And on the other side, we see कि जो ईरान के foreign minister है, is released a statement saying कि जो process है of releasing billions of dollars from the country's assets that has begun, and it added कि Iran, it is pursuing the release of Iranians detained in the US for years, and that it will be realized in the near future. So Iran, it has also insisted that it will have full control over how these assets they are used. And that's there. So significant amount of funds which are blocked in the trade bank of Iraq, they would also be released. सो यहाँ पे रोल ऑफ कतर क्या रहा? तो कतर एंड ओमान दोनों ने एज अ मीडिएटर एक्ट किया है बिटवीन यूएस एंड ईरान, and that is also true in case of the like past instances also. So they were involved in basically efforts to salvage 2015 nuclear deal that former US President Donald Trump he pulled out of in 2018. So these are thing, and now coming to the question कि actually जो detainees हैं ईरान में वो कौन है? So US government has identified Americans and they have reportedly they do not want to disclose their identities. So it is said कि Iranian American businessman है, wildlife conservationist है, who also holds a British passports. And यहाँ पे individuals की details दे रखी है. And कुछ ऐसे Iranian American citizens हैं who were arrested in Tehran in 2015 for spying and cooperating with the US government. So ऐसे सारे individuals and detainees हैं जिनको release किया जाएगा. So unviable Arunachal hydel projects, they have been given to central PSUs. So despite knowing that they're unviable, they've been given to the central PSU. So 12 ऐसे hydro projects Arunachal Pradesh में that were officially handed over to 3 central public sector undertakings because they're economically unviable. And that is according to the water resources experts, they feel. So private companies, they had given up on all these projects. So again, kahin na kahin, jo burden hai that lies on the public sector. So firstly, from economic viability and unviability, that is one of the major concerns. And secondly, from the perspective of environment. So it becomes important कि जो भी सिचुएशन हमें देखने को मिली इन स्टेट्स लाइक हिमाचल प्रदेश या उत्तराखंड की आप बात करें तो हाइडल पावर प्रोजेक्ट्स जो कंस्ट्रक्ट किए जाते हैं प्रॉपर एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट के बाद आफ्टर कंसिडरिंग ऑल द थिंग्स वेदर इट वुड लीड टू चेंज इन द नेचुरल फ्लो ऑफ द रिवर वाटर और नॉट. सो ये सारी कंसिडरेशंस करने के बाद प्रॉपर एनालिसिस के बाद वी नीड टू गिव अ गो हेड टू ऑल दीज टाइप्स ऑफ हाइड्रो पावर प्रोजेक्ट्स इन hilly states. So we are seeing floods in Bangladesh, in northern China. So global level, we are seeing different forms of impacts of the climate change. So 2 militants killed in Pakistan after attack on the convoy of the Chinese workers. Situation in Pakistan remains volatile, and again, they are headed for general elections also. So from the Mint newspaper, we see the topic is challenge for the liquor industry, the makers, the manufacturers, and also even for the consumers. What are going to be some of the emergent challenges? So we are seeing that because of hike in the excise duty, जो manufacturing cost obviously that would be increased, and जो increase होगा in cost that would be again transferred to the consumers of liquor. So let's understand this in a little bit more detail. So liquor sales post COVID-19 कैसी रही हैं? So after 2 years of the pandemic related disruptions, we have seen temporary suspension of liquor sales as well as closure of bars and pubs also. So liquor industry, however, it rebounded sharply in 2022-23, and that was because of the pent up demand. And we are also seeing greater sales the premium liquor also. मतलब demand for the premium and expensive liquor hai, that has also been increasing, which means that Indians are drinking more of good stuff. So why this current financial year is turning out to be a challenge? So we've seen that after a handsome recovery from the pandemic lows, which issues hai, like we are seeing an increase in the cost of the raw material that persists, and this is specifically true of the raw materials like glass and extra neutral alcohol. Then beer maker like United Breweries, they have recently warned the analysts that it does not see glass prices softening till the end of the year. So raw material cost is spiking up, and tighter supply of rice ki wajah se again, because it is an important raw material for the ethanol production, even that has disrupted the manufacturing of liquor. So government is also thinking about increasing the price of ethanol, so it could again lead to further increase in the cost of production. सो कर्नाटका में क्या हुआ रिसेंटली, कर्नाटका ने हाइक किया है जो एडिशनल एक्साइज ड्यूटी है ऑन द लिकर एंड बियर. सो द एडिशनल एक्साइज ड्यूटी क्यों इम्पोज की गई है? They have been increased around by 20% and 175 to 185% इंक्रीज किया गया है बियर पे. सो हाइक्स हैं, इट वुड बूस्ट स्टेट के रेवेन्यू के टर्म्स में ये फायदा होने वाला है, and it would but again lead to proliferation of informal supply chains, a black market. सो कर्नाटका के जो बायर्स हैं उनके ऊपर क्या इसका इम्पैक्ट होगा? तो ऑब्वियसली कंज्यूमर्स दे वुड बी मूविंग टू द चीपर ब्रांड्स इन रिस्पॉन्स ऑफ द प्राइस हाइक्स, एंड जो प्रीमियम ब्रांड्स हैं वो कॉस्ट ऑब्वियसली कंज्यूमर्स के ऊपर ट्रांसफर किया जाएगा. सो कंपनीज के प्रॉफिट्स उनकी परफॉर्मेंस पे भी इम्पैक्ट होगा, डिसरप्शन सप्लाई चेन्स एक इम्पैक्ट होगा, इंक्रीज इन द प्राइसेस ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल्स की वजह से वो एक मेजर चैलेंज होने वाला है. Quote of the day is that the core reason for the demand for the SUVs is the larger road presence that they offer, and that's why people they go for these cars. But on the other side, when it comes to sheer driving comfort as well as traveling comfort, there is nothing to beat a sedan. So this is automobile industry, and specifically automobile industry के अगर हम the major trends की बात करें तो luxury cars की जो sales हैं that has been growing exponentially. सो कहीं ना कहीं क्या हमें ये पॉइंट आउट कर रहा है कि कोविड-19 की वजह से वी हैव आल्सो सीन इंक्रीज इन इकोनॉमिक इनइक्वालिटी आल्सो. Taking a Financial Express newspaper, so let's see what are the other topics. So deal disclosures में we are seeing that it is taking little longer time. So ये कहीं ना कहीं it is not a positive sign for the foreign investors in India. So it is taking around 6 to 8 months now from earlier 4 to 5 months. So in addition, जो भी हमारे traditional accounting, financial, tax and legal diligence ghost visits थे, they are being conducted in some cases. And promoters are also holding off starting a transaction process because of the lowering of the valuation multiples due to market sentiments. Investors, they want to ensure that they fulfill their fiduciary responsibilities before committing the monies. So deal closures, they are taking longer as investors. They are consuming a lot of more time in due diligence than before. And control deals typically take 6 to 8 months now as compared to 4 to 5 months जो पहले टाइम लिया जाता था. So it would be taken by investors before the pandemic जो टाइम पीरियड था. तो बहुत ज़्यादा फोकस किया जा रहा है and attention दी जा रही है on the conviction for proof of concept, sustainability of the revenues and profits. तो इन 3 फैक्टर्स पे बहुत ज़्यादा फोकस होने की वजह से थोड़ा एक्स्ट्रा टाइम लग रहा है in the deal closures. So electric passenger vehicles की sales and demand definitely बहुत ज़्यादा increase हो रही है. तो again, just rate pay, we are working upon the construction of the charging infrastructure that needs to also, match this pace. So tackling of corruption के लिए है where the Union Minister of State, he says that under India's leadership, the G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group, it has achieved significant milestones, and this will give political impetus to the momentum of facilitating international collaboration and enhancing accountability in the fight against corruption. So हमारे लिए basically किस चीज पे हम ज्यादा फोकस कर रहे हैं, what are the measures, what are the initiatives in order to tackle corruption by India, and how G20 membership, what has been India, focusing upon at the G20 platform. So इसके बारे में you can little find out more details. So laws of plantation, current laws जो हैं, again उनमें क्या loopholes हैं, क्या concerns हैं, सबसे पहले वो पता होना चाहिए, and then और क्या किया जाना चाहिए, that needs to be thought upon. So after wrapping up the stakeholder consultations हो चुकी हैं, Department of Commerce it is begin interministerial discussions. 5 bills हैं जो deal करते हैं with the plantation sector. So new legislation they will be replacing जो हमारे पास existing acts and laws हैं जो govern करते हैं tea, coffee, rubber, spices and tobacco. So टी एक्ट जो है 1953 की है, इट इज proposed to be replaced with another act. रबर एक्ट को किया जाएगा. सो ये सारी एक्ट्स है जिनको रिप्लेस किए जाने की बात की जा रही है. डिस्कशंस आर being done on this, and apart from this, all 5 bills they seek to reorganize the existing boards जो हैं of the 5 sectors into a more corporate structure so that उनकी efficiency है, जो professionalism है, that improves. And tea, coffee, rubber and spices boards, they will have the positions of chief executive officer and chief financial officer also. So जो draft bills हैं, they also talk about the responsibilities for the boards like promotion of exports, improving the quality, bringing in new technologies, increasing production and productivity, encouraging fair and remunerative prices for the growers and protecting interest of the workers. So ये broader areas होंगे जिनके ऊपर focus किया जा रहा है in terms of reorganizing all these different laws. So these are some of the new proposals. So जो current requirement है and जो हमारे पास current laws हैं, they need to be in tune with each other. And obviously जो archaic laws हैं, provisions हैं, that needs to be done away with. Remittances to India, it grows at 26%, and you can see here the trend. So remittances में India was the first country to hit this record of hitting $100 billion of mark for the remittances. So remittances grown at 26%, underscoring the surge in the demand for the Indian professionals globally after the pandemic. And India continues to be the top recipient of the remittances globally for the last several years. So we are at rank 1 when it comes to remittances inflow. So rising CD ratio, CD is the credit to deposit ratio जो है, it may pose a problem. Credit to deposit ratio अगर increase हो रहा है, basically demand for credit is increasing, या credit जो दिया जा रहा है that is comparatively more to the deposit rates जो banks में किए जा रहे हैं. So this is the trend of the credit to deposit ratio. You can see how it has been spiking up. And right now it is at 76. We can say exactly at 76%. So that is the thing. And experts का कहना ये है कि they feel कि CD ratio should be at 80%, accounting for the merger of HDFC Bank with HDFC. So rising credit to deposit ratio, it may pose problems for few banks as they would have to borrow the funds at higher rates to meet the demand for the loans. क्योंकि higher interest rate पे एक तो आप short term notice पे अगर you'll be going for borrowing, तो obviously आपको higher interest rate पे ही पैसा मिलेगा. Secondly, we are also seeing कि repo rates जो already higher level पे हैं, तो उसकी वजह से भी कुछ amount of pressure है interest rates के ऊपर. तो कहीं ना कहीं banking sector के लिए एक concern है, क्योंकि अगर अगेन क्रेडिट की अगर ज्यादा डिमांड हो रही है, लोन्स की ज्यादा डिमांड हो रही है, और आप प्रपोर्शन भी देख सकते हो 76% है ऑफ द डिपॉजिट रेशियो, तो उसकी वजह से अगेन बैंक्स के ऊपर इस रीजन से प्रेशर इंक्रीज हो सकता है, क्योंकि बैंक्स को शॉर्ट टर्म पर्पस के लिए शॉर्ट टर्म में बोरो करने पड़ सकते हैं फंड. तो वो अगेन हम बोलेंगे जो फंड्स की कॉस्ट होगी बोरोइंग की वो हाई रहेगी, क्योंकि बैंक्स को अपना जो इनकम आती है फ्रॉम द लोन्स इन द फॉर्म ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, तो बैंक्स दे कैन नॉट कॉम्प्रोमाइज ऑन दैट, क्योंकि अगेन वो बैंकिंग बिजनेस के ऊपर नेगेटिवली इम्पैक्ट करते हैं. सो दिस में अकर एट अ टाइम व्हेन वी आर सीइंग कि आरबीआई इज ऑलरेडी अनाउंस्ड to mandate 10% incremental cash reserve ratio. एंड अगेन ये एक और प्रेशर है बैंकिंग सेक्टर के ऊपर. 12th अगस्त से दिस वाज द डेडलाइन कि दे हैव टू मेंटेन इंक्रीमेंटल सीआरआर ऑफ 10% more. So this is one of the emerging concerns for the banking sector. इंडियन एक्सप्रेस न्यूज़पेपर में देखते हैं और कौन से इंपॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल्स जो हमने अभी तक नहीं लिए हैं. तो ड्रग फाइट की अगर हम बात करें इन द पंजाब स्टेट, तो इट टेक्स अ होल विलेज. पंजाब के मालवा में वी आर सीइंग कि जो लोकल कमिटीज है दे टेक अप द फाइट अगेंस्ट द ड्रग अब्यूज. तो वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड कि कैसे लोकल कमिटीज इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले कर सकती है. सो हैव वी सीन कि फ्रॉम अ शॉपकीपर keeping an eye on suspicious persons entering his village, and a former heroin addict teaching kabaddi to the locals, to a man posting videos of his confrontation with the suspected peddlers, to a youth who died confronting an alleged dealer. मतलब people have also died in this fight. Residents of the village in Salmagar leaving no stone unturned. So that's how you can see ki from youth to a local shopkeeper to a teacher to basically a kabaddi teacher, you can see how people are playing their important role. They're fulfilling their, we can say, their duty and responsibility towards the society. सो बेसिकली जब हम बात करते हैं फूड इन्फ्लेशन की, तो यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंटल मेजर्स क्या हमें हेल्प कर सकते हैं, हाउ दे कैन हेल्प अस. पहले तो कौन से डिफरेंट मेजर्स अवेलेबल हैं फॉर द गवर्नमेंट, क्या ऑप्शंस हैं, एंड देन अगेन उनका इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा इन टर्म्स ऑफ रिड्यूसिंग द फूड इन्फ्लेशन या कंट्रोलिंग ऑफ द फूड इन्फ्लेशन. सो हेयर one is again key release of the buffer stocks, some amount in the open market sell from the buffer stock, that is one commonly used measure. Apart from this, here slashing of the import duty on wheat, cereal inflation की जब हम बात करते हैं, तो this can also play some positive role in terms of increasing the imports क्योंकि एक्सपोर्ट्स हम बैन कर चुके हैं ऑलरेडी, सो दैट डोमेस्टिकली जो एडिक्वेट अमाउंट ऑफ सप्लाई है हम उसको मेंटेन कर सके एंड डिमांड सप्लाई में इसमें ज़्यादा मिसमैच ना क्रिएट हो. सो लास्ट वीक इट्स अ प्रोएक्टिव मेजर्स फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट फॉर कंट्रोलिंग द फूड इन्फ्लेशन. When we see that CPI index का जो data था that was released and it did not present too pretty pictures, so decision was made to offload 5 million tons of wheat, 2.5 million tons of rice from FCI godowns into the open market. So this is one measure जो मैं बोल रही थी. Apart from this, what we can see is the supply chain, जो supply side interventions government करती है, that extending earlier to export bans also. This is another thing. It has both economic and political dimensions. So RBI cannot, beyond a point, it can look through the food inflation, क्योंकि again this is not basically demand side inflation नहीं हो रहा है, जो food inflation के पीछे जो reasons हैं. So monetary policy ज़्यादा help करती है, ज़्यादा we can say to the point impact करती है अगर supply side factors are causing the food inflation, या broader level पे अगर हम खाली inflation की भी बात करें. तो while there's little जो monetary policy help कर सकती है in terms of controlling the food prices, so that's why fiscal policy it becomes important. And जो latest measures हैं, it reflects desperation more than anything. July inflation number, it is likely to be above RBI का जो 6% outer band है. And again, concern regarding inflation, we know कि as per the forecast also we expected because of even El Nino कि food inflation might spike up in the coming time. So हवाई में जो वाइल्ड फायर्स देखी गई, they have been declared as the deadliest in US in over 100 years, and 93 people have died because of this. So specifically, if we talk about the Western world, so instances of wildfires are massively on the rise. So again, how we can tackle them? Obviously, the policies are going to vary from country to country. So this is again impact of the climate change that we are happening at a larger scale. So पार्लियामेंट की प्रिविलेजेस कमेटी क्या है एंड बेसिकली कैसे फंक्शन करती है? सो बेसिकली पार्लियामेंट्री प्रिविलेजेस क्या होते हैं? सो जो पार्लियामेंट है एंड मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्स हैं, उनकी सर्टेन राइट्स एंड इम्यूनिटीज वो एंजॉय करते हैं दैट एनेबल देम टू फंक्शन इफेक्टिवली इन देयर लेजिस्लेटिव रोल्स, ताकि जो अपना लेजिस्लेटिव रोल्स हैं दे कैन कैरी दैट आउट इन अ फ्री एंड फेयर मैनर. सो दैट्स व्हाई दे एंजॉय सर्टेन राइट्स एंड इम्यूनिटीज है, जिनको हम प्रिविलेजेस भी बोल सकते हैं. So the constitution framers, they made our founding document. It provided कि जो parliamentary privileges हैं, they would be specified in a proper law that would be made by the parliament. And until the national legislatures, they made such a law. जो privileges थे, they would be those enjoyed by the House of Commons, the lower house of the UK parliament में जो लोअर हाउस है. तो जब तक ये लॉ पास नहीं किया गया, तो जो प्रिविलेजेस यूके के लोअर हाउस में फॉलो की जाती थी, दी जाती थी, हमने उन्हीं को फॉलो किया. So parliamentary privileges, they are therefore a mix of provisions है in the constitution, statutes, house procedures में है and conventions में भी mentioned है. So आपको ये पता होना चाहिए. And apart from this, जैसे कि constitution specify करता है कि जो MPs हैं, they have the freedom of speech and immunity from judicial proceedings against anything that they say or they vote for in the parliament. So for that they have the freedom of speech and immunity from the judicial proceedings. Also जो code of civil procedure है, that also provides them with the protection from arrest and detention under any civil case during a parliamentary session, for a specified period before it begins and after it ends. So even during this time period also, they enjoy certain kind of protection from civil arrest. Now, what happens if we see any breach of privilege happening in the parliament, तो parliament क्या करता है? So each house of the parliament, it is the guardian of its privileges. Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, they have authority to take suitable action against anyone who breaches the privileges of its members or commits the contempt of the house. So Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha के पास power है to react, and there are two mechanisms. So दो mechanisms exist करते हैं by which parliament takes up these matters. So पहला है कि the member खुद issue raise करता है on the floor of the house, and then the house decides क्या किया जाना चाहिए. But Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, they usually send this matter for a detailed examination to their privileges committee जो है. तो further scrutiny के लिए it is sent to the privileges committee, and then committee recommend करती है to the house कि आगे course of action क्या होना चाहिए. So जो chairman है लोक सभा के, currently it is MP Sunil Kumar Singh. लोक सभा committee के जो chairman है, that is MP Sunil Kumar Singh, and deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha is Harivash, who heads the committee of the upper house. So chairman भी है, obviously हर committee का chairman होता है जो भी parliamentary committee होती है. So MPs, they can also bring the matter of breach of the privilege to the notice of the presiding officers of their respective houses also. So this is the second mechanism जो available है. So जो presiding officer है, they can then decide कि whether or not to send the case to privilege committee. तो then मतलब power lies with the presiding officer कि क्या किया जाना चाहिए, whether it needs to be sent for further scrutiny to the privileges committee or not. So किस तरह के cases आते हैं committee को? Usually committee examine करती है cases जहाँ पे MPs complain करते हैं कि जो outsider है, it is outsider has breached their privilege. For example, Lok Sabha committee recently looked at multiple instances जहाँ पे MPs ने allege किया कि जो government officials हैं, they have either violated the protocol or they have been unresponsive. So ऐसे matters refer किए जाते हैं. So committee क्या actions ले सकती है? So जो committee on privileges हैं, they have the power to recommend to the house कि क्या आगे course of action होना चाहिए, क्या मतलब issue of admonitions होना चाहिए, reprimands किया जाना चाहिए, suspension या rare cases में expulsion from the house भी possible है. So इन matters पे committee recommend करती है to the house, and convention जो follow किया जाता है by the committee of both the houses is that कि if MP against whom privilege matter it is raised gives an unqualified apology, so issue it is allowed to rest. So अगर जिस MP के against complaint raise की जाती है, if he or she offers unqualified privilege तो unqualified apology, तो matter वहीं पे खत्म हो जाता है. So making urea deliver more, this is in the context of the fertilizer sector, and सबसे बड़ा issue is fertilizer subsidy जो कि कहीं ना कहीं distort करता है of the usage and application of fertilizers while cultivation. So इस distortion of usage की वजह से obviously soil health पे negative impact होता है, productivity पे भी negative impact होता है. तो again at the same time this also forms a huge part of the revenue expenditure of the government also. So ये दो major issues हैं. अब हम basically जब even controlling of the price की बात आती है तो वहाँ पे और क्या किया जाना चाहिए. So fortification of urea, this is another thing जो again soil health को improve कर सकता है. Fortification of urea, DAP and जो other commodity fertilizers है with micronutrients, that is the way forward for boosting crop yields and productivity, maximizing the use efficiency of imported nutrients. So यूरिया ज्यादा यूज किया जा रहा है, जो नाइट्रोजन प्लांट्स को रीच कर रहा है, दैट इज फॉलिंग विद टाइम. तो जो हमारी नाइट्रोजन यूज एफिशिएंसी इन इंडिया है, दैट हैज बीन डिक्लाइनिंग. इट हैज एट ओनली 34.7%. पहले अराउंड हम बोल सकते 50% थी, तो इट इज बीन डिक्लाइनिंग मैसिवली. एंड ऑल इंडिया कंजम्पशन या सेल ऑफ यूरिया की बात करें तो दैट हैज, यू कैन सी, इट हैज स्पाइक्ड अप मैसिवली और शार्पली. सो दोनों नेगेटिव या ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन में मूव कर रहे हैं. सो वी आर सीइंग कि जो नॉर्मल यूरिया है, इट कंटेन्स 46% ऑफ अ सिंगल प्लांट न्यूट्रिएंट, दैट इज नाइट्रोजन. यूरिया गोल्ड जो है it has 37% nitrogen plus 17% surplus, and they aim at two things. So first is to deliver sulfur along with nitrogen. So Indian soils जो हैं they are deficient in sulfur, which oil seeds and pulses the country is significantly import dependent in both. That particularly is required. Oil seed और pulses के ऊपर हम like we're dependent upon the imports. So oil seed cultivation के लिए, pulses cultivation के लिए we require sulfur. And the second is to improve the nitrogen use efficiency of urea. So जो coating of sulfur है over urea, it ensures more gradual release of nitrogen. With the prolonged urea action, जो plants हैं they stay greener for a longer time period. So what is the problem? So urea, it is India's most widely used fertilizer है, with its consumption per sales या मतलब consumption या sales की अगर हम बात करें, that is rising from 26.7 million tons to 35.7 million tons between 2009 and 2022. So mandatory coating of all the urea with the neem oil and reducing the size of the bags from 50 to 45 kg. This is also enabled in a slight dip of the usage of urea after 2013-14 till 2017-18. तो ये कुछ दो measures दिए गए थे through which we have seen results, but इतने कोई major positive results नहीं निकल के आए हैं. थोड़ी सी help हुई है. Then दो major concerns over using the urea. That is, first is उसके import, which account for 7.6 million ton out of the total 35.7 million ton हम import कर रहे हैं. And even regarding जो domestically manufactured urea है, जो feedstock है, that is used as natural gas जो है, it is mostly imported. मतलब domestic production में भी जो feedstock use किया जाता है जो कि natural gas होती है, वो भी हम import कर रहे हैं. तो हमारी जो import dependence है वो कहीं ना कहीं ज्यादा है, चाहे आप direct import की बात करो यूरिया की, या फिर आप एज अ रॉ मटेरियल जो फीड स्टॉक यूज किया जाता है फॉर द प्रोडक्शन ऑफ यूरिया डोमेस्टिकली, वो भी इम्पोर्ट डिपेंडेंट है. सो नियरली इंडिया में वी आर सीइंग कि 36 million ton of annual consumption of जो यूरिया है, that is today next only to China. So India is at number 2 when it comes to urea consumption. So second concern is with NUE. So barely we are seeing 35% of जो nitrogen है applied through urea in India. It is actually utilized by the crops to produce the harvested yield. मतलब कि जो nitrogen use efficiency है बहुत low है इंडिया में. So जो balance 65% nitrogen है, that is unavailable to the plants. मतलब जितना भी यूरिया हम सपोज अप्लाई करते हैं और उसमें सपोज 100% नाइट्रोजन अवेलेबल है, तो सिर्फ 35% ही प्लांट्स यूज कर पाते हैं. 65% ऑफ नाइट्रोजन इज नॉट अवेलेबल टू देम. तो आप बोल सकते हैं कि इट इज लॉस्ट थ्रू रिलीज इनटू द एटमॉस्फेयर एज अमोनिया गैस, या इट इज लीचिंग बिलो द ग्राउंड. तो ग्राउंड वाटर पोल्यूशन को भी ये कहीं ना कहीं कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है. And this we have seen कि जो nitrogen use efficiency है, that is declined from 1950s till 2018. We are seeing we are at 34.7%. So क्या fortification of urea solution है कि नहीं? So growing consensus is that कि India cannot sustain the above increase in consumption of urea or even the diammonium phosphate. So म्यूरेट ऑफ पोटैश की अगर आप बात करो, जो बाकी फर्टिलाइजर्स हैं which contains nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium as the primary nutrients. तो क्या किया जाना चाहिए if we cannot withstand the increasing consumption and usage of all these fertilizers? So we are a country with hardly any natural gas reserves नहीं है हमारे पास, या economically viable natural gas sources available नहीं है, या rock phosphate available नहीं है, potash, sulfur reserves. They shouldn't beyond a point encourage the consumption of these commodity fertilizers in plain vanilla form. So instead they must be coated with secondary nutrients like sulfur हो, calcium हो, magnesium हो, जैसे हम neem coated यूरिया की बात करते हैं. So that can play a very important role. So coating, it allows the urea, चाहे आप DAP की भी बात करो, to be used as carrier products for delivering the secondary and micronutrients to the crops. So nutrition या phosphorus use efficiency through synergetic efforts and controlled release. That in case of urea, that can help in reducing the losses through ammonia volatilization and nitrate leaching. So this is one of the possible solutions that exist and that needs to be focused upon. So hurdle kya hai? Hurdle is to do with the pricing thing. So government currently it permits जो coating of urea with zinc की अगर हम बात करें, for which fertilizer concerns it can recover an extra of rupees 542 per ton, and sulfur भी that is also applicable. Urea apart, additional subsidy जो दी जाती है government के द्वारा, that is rupees 300 or rupees 500 per ton, that is being provided for the phosphorus and the potassium fertilizers fortified with boron and zinc respectively. So जो additional rates हैं, they are not attractive enough for the companies to even make the zincated urea. So even for the companies भी उनके लिए भी जो prices हैं, they are not profitable for them. So ideally क्या किया जाना चाहिए? Coating that needs to be carried out at the factory itself, which will guarantee even more uniform distribution of the micronutrients and save the farmer the hassles of mixing. So government can probably set जो free MRPs है for all these coated fertilizers, and the regular urea जो भी है, this will continue to be sold at heavily subsidized rates. Companies, they cannot charge too much of a premium on their fortified fertilizer products. So gradually we can basically reduce the subsidy also and the amount of regular urea जो available है in the market once we have sufficient amount of fortified urea and other fertilizers available in the market for the farmer usage. So what is the debate around vacation of the Supreme Court and the High Court judges? So terming the court vacations as a colonial legacy बोला जाता है जो court vacations हैं. This is a part of the colonial legacy which has been continued with time. So parliamentary panel ने recommend किया है कि high court judges, they need to take turns going on vacation to tackle the mounting pendency cases, because India के case में this is one of the concerns of high judicial pendency of the cases, and at the same time फिर obviously the vacations of Supreme Court High Court judges is contradictory because वो कहीं ना कहीं और escalate करता है problem को. तो one of the recommendations according to the parliamentary panel is कि judges they need to take turns when it comes to vacation instead of कि पूरा court ही vacation पे चला जाता है एक साथ at same particular point of time. So report जो है, it is 133rd report on the subject of the judicial processes and their reforms. So demand for doing away with the court vacations, that is primarily due to two factors. So दो major factors है जिसकी वजह से we are saying कि जो court vacation है that needs to be done away with, या जिस manner में vacation ली जाती है वो change किया जाना चाहिए. So report says कि one, there is huge pendency of cases है India में. Secondly, जो inconvenience है faced by litigants during the court vacation. So ये दो main reasons हैं जिसकी वजह से the manner of vacations needs to change. So कितने टाइम पीरियड के लिए इंडिया में जो कोर्ट्स है दे गो ऑन अ वेकेशन? So Supreme Court, it has 193 working days a year for its judicial functioning after out of total 356 days. So 193 ही सिर्फ working days होते हैं, and high courts जो हैं they function for approximately 210 days, and trial courts जो हैं they are functioning for the maximum 245 days. So Supreme Court जो break लेता है that is for annual summer vacation होती है which is typically for 7 weeks. 7 weeks की vacations होती है starting at the end of May and then court open होता है July में. So Supreme Court it also takes week long break होता है दशहरा के time, दिवाली के time, 2 week के off होते हैं at the end of December. So despite the vacations, we are seeing कि Supreme Court it has many more working days compared with the highest courts in other countries. So अगर बाकी countries के साथ हम compare करें तो still जो number of days Indian Supreme Court function करता है that is higher. So USA में the Supreme Court sits for 79 days with no oral arguments. But again यहाँ पे एक और point आ जाता है जो इंडिया में हम high judicial pendency of the cases देख रहे हैं, वो it is not possible कि उतनी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम किसी बाकी कंट्री में हो। अगर हम बोल रहे हैं कि इंडियन सुप्रीम कोर्ट ज्यादा नंबर ऑफ डेज फंक्शन कर रहा है, तो जो हमारे डोमेस्टिक कंसर्न्स हैं हमें उसके पर्सपेक्टिव से सोचना है कि वेदर जो ये सिस्टम है ऑफ वेकेशन दैट नीड्स टू चेंज और नॉट। So even you're seeing कि RBI, it has also selected McKinsey and Accenture Solutions to use artificial intelligence and machine learning. So even supervisory framework में कैसे this modern technology, it would be helping the RBI is one of its important applications. So RBI is looking to extensively use these advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning to analyze its huge database, improve the regulatory supervision over the banks and NBFCs. So RBI ने इस पर्पस के लिए external experts को hire किया है. So we are seeing कि global जो uncertainty है and concerns over China's economic recovery की अगर हम बात करें, या even tensions regarding the Taiwan Strait, so FPIs, they are investing in equities in the Indian market. So stability of the Indian economy, resilience of our banking sector, these are some of the major reasons why we are seeing more amount of FPI inflows into India in our capital markets in the form of equity investments. एंड टू दैट मैटर अगर हम डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज की बात करें, वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड की बात करें, तो इवन देयर द ग्रोथ इज नॉट दैट प्रॉमिसिंग। बट एक बस फैक्टर है जब हम बात करते हैं रेपो रेट इंक्रीज की बाय द यूएस फेड और इवन यूरोपियन यूनियन में यूरोपियन सेंट्रल बैंक, दे हैव इंक्रीज द रेपो रेट। तो एक बस वो नेगेटिव फैक्टर है जो कहीं ना कहीं मतलब इन्वेस्टर्स को डिसाइड करने में फोर्स करता है कि दे हैव टू इन्वेस्ट मोर, जहाँ पे ऑब्वियसली उनको ज्यादा इंटरेस्ट रेट या रिटर्न्स मिलेंगे। तो अगर इंडिया में दिस टाइम वी सॉ कि रेपो रेट हाइक नहीं किया गया, रिसेंटली वी 2 to 3 days अगो वी सॉ एमपीसी ने स्टेटस को मेंटेन किया है। बट जो इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल के बारे में हमने बात करी, तो वो एक इम्पॉर्टेंट फैक्टर होता है व्हेन एफपीआईज दे टेक देयर डिसीजन रिगार्डिंग द इन्वेस्टमेंट्स। So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us in today's analysis video. I hope the topics are clear. Do subscribe to the channel and leave your feedback in the comment section, and also like this video.